His name was Fred Seinroll. Now, who is Fred Seinroll? Fred Seinroll was a classmate of mine from first grade through eighth grade. Through fifth grade. First grade through fifth grade, because then we moved to Texas. Fred Seinroll and I were not friends. He was what we would call in those days a tattletale. Now, what is a tattletale? Well, we would be out on the playground, and me and the other boys would get into some mischief, wrestling, pulling the girls' ponytails or throwing snowballs at each other. And then from somewhere in the crowd of children, we would hear this taunt that would say, "I'm gonna tell." And sure enough, there's Fred Seinroll standing at Sister Mary Agnes's desk, ratting us out as we came back from recess. Now, most of the time we probably deserve to be told on. I have myself been called a tattletale even by my own grandmother. She used to go outside and smoke a cigarette, and I tell my grandpa, "Grandma's outside smoking a cigarette," and Grandma would go, "Tattletale." But what is that? What is that? What is a tattletale? Well, it's someone who goes to someone in authority and tells them something to get another person in trouble. Tells someone in authority something that gets another person in trouble, but it's really their motivations. They do it out of jealousy, to win favor, sometimes out of spite, sometimes to get money, or even popularity. That's what we call a tattletale. To tell someone in authority that something someone else did to get them in trouble. Now, I guess the most famous tattletale would be someone like Judas Iscariot, who told on our Lord to get him in trouble out of jealousy, out of greed, maybe out of spite. We're not sure. We know that Satan himself entered him, but he was the biggest tattletale. But I think the question, for me anyway, today, what do we call someone who shares something that they did with someone in authority, who rats themselves out to someone in authority, something they've done or believed that gets themselves into trouble? What do we call someone who goes before an authority and said, "Yes, I did this, and I'm not taking it back, and I believe in this," and gets themselves in trouble? Or in the Christian faith, we call that person a witness, a martyr. Jesus himself said, "Listen, they will draw you before governors and kings and princes and magistrates, and you'll be called to testify, to say, 'Yes, I did it. It was me. I follow Christ now, and not you and your emperor.'" And it was not out of selfish reasons. It's totally unselfish. It got them into trouble. They lost popularity. They didn't get any money out of it. But today and now their legacy comes down to us. They're now witnesses and martyrs. And they didn't say something like, "I'm going to tell." They had the attitude is that I can't wait to tell. I can't wait to tell about what has happened or who has happened to me. Now, today we have this famous gospel story of the woman caught in adultery. We can talk all day about what happened here, what may have happened here. Let me go ahead and say, for me, the whole story sounds like a setup, sounds fishy. There are whole schools of theologians who think maybe she was an actress paid by the Sadducees and Pharisees. Maybe she was set up. They throw her down and say, "We caught this woman in the very act of adultery." What does that say about the scribes and Pharisees? What are they like, peeping Toms looking through the window? Aha, we're going to tell. That's weird. That's why I think the whole thing just stinks from the word go. But leaving that aside, what went on there? Leaving that aside, I think these scribes and Pharisees are just a bunch of tattletales. And they weren't going to go tell on this man or this woman. They still wanted to get Jesus. And they saw this was a great opportunity. Because when they say, hey, this woman's been caught in the very act of adultery, and Moses said that she should be stoned. If Jesus says, stone her, go ahead, stone her, they know he's going to get in trouble. Only the Romans could put people to death. That was the law. Under the Roman Empire, only the Romans could put people to death, and that'll come up on Good Friday. But if he said stone her, they know they could turn him in to the Roman authorities. If he said, don't stone her, let her go, they could tattle again. They could tell everybody he's not a real prophet. He's defying Moses' law. He's a fake. They would either way tattle on him. Either way, rat him out. He would be arrested or discredited. Either way, he'd be arrested or discredited. Now, we know that Jesus pulls a checkmate on them and does neither. And we're left to ponder what may have happened, what are the ripple effects of this event. I'd like to think that many of the people who watched this event and don't think the elders and scribes walked away because they were convicted. They weren't going to stone her. They didn't want to get in trouble. The Roman guards were watching. But maybe the people who were just regular people standing around, they went home and said, you're not going to believe what happened. You're not going to believe what went down today. And that got them talking about who this Jesus guy was. How he checkmated the scribes and Pharisees. We'd like to think that that woman went away. Whoever she was, wherever she went, she experienced the mercy of God. Now, Jesus did not defy any law. The law said if you're going to be convicted of adultery, you need at least 2 witnesses. Jesus didn't see any of this, and all the witnesses left. He said to her, no one's here to condemn you, and neither do I condemn you, but knock it off. Stop sinning. Avoid this sin. We don't know what she did, but if she's like any one of us, she probably went and told everybody, you're not going to believe what happened. You're not going to believe who happened to me today. And what did that do? That started the energy that prepared them for the gospel. And we can bring up all kinds of people in the scriptures. The woman at the well, we know she went back to the Samaria and said, you're not going to believe what happened to me. I met a man who knew all about me. The lepers that Jesus cured. The man who was relieved of the demoniac. Lazarus himself, Jesus rose from the dead, is walking around testifying that at least this is a miracle worker. At least this is a great prophet. He is witnessing. And people are probably running up to him saying, hey man, we heard you were dead for 4 days. What happened? How'd you get back here? And what did he do? He told them about what happened. He witnessed what happened. That something amazing had happened to them. Salvation, clarity, meaning, purpose had happened to all of them. But rather someone had happened to them. Jesus Christ had happened to them. And they didn't say, I'm going to tell. They said, I can't wait to tell. I can't wait to tell. You know, just a few minutes ago, we chanted that psalm, the Lord has done great things for us, and we're filled with joy. Is it true? Is it true? It doesn't say the Lord has done great things for us and we're going to keep it to ourselves. It doesn't say that. Because if the Lord has worked something in your heart, how can you keep it to yourself? A few weeks ago, the diocese asked me to share my vocation story, conversion story. And I remember saying, kind of apologizing to some of you, because some of you have heard that like over and over again. But the truth is, I love telling it. Because that's mine. And I love sharing it, because it's good news. And I would encourage all of you, do not keep this kind of stuff to yourself. If the Lord has healed you, if He's given you insight, purpose, new meaning, if He has saved you every time you go to confession, receive the Eucharist, and sometimes even in prayer you get a different insight. Hopefully you're excited about it. hopefully you can't help but tell people about it. So we'd encourage you, especially this week. So next week, not this coming week, but starting next Sunday is Holy Week, Palm Sunday. We have these little cards in the back as you walk out the exits there. And it's a little card inviting people to the Palm Sunday Masses. Now, why do we do that? Because what's going to happen if you give that to someone and say, we'd like you to come to our Palm Sunday Mass, they might ask you, what is that? What is that? Well, this is your time to blab. This is your time to talk and tell. Well, that's when we commemorate Jesus entering into Jerusalem as we begin Holy Week. They might say, Holy Week, what is that? Well, good. Then you can tell them about that. How that's the week leading up to Triduum. The week leading up to Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday. Now, if you mention Triduum, they might say, well, what is that? Well, tell them. That's the unique liturgical season, just 3 days, leading up to Easter, the celebration of Easter. Now, if they say, what's Easter? You might have more work to do. Because then you're dealing with someone who doesn't know anything. But there's a good chance they know what Easter is. They know what Pascua is, Pascal. They know what the Passion is. And to even explain to them at Holy Thursday, remember the institution of the Eucharist and the washing of the feet. And we redo it. And then at Good Friday, we replay again and relive the Passion of our Lord. And we go through it blow by blow, minute by minute, just like when we go through these Stations of the Cross. You could invite them to the Stations of the Cross on Friday when we will walk from Our Lady of Guadalupe to St. Mary's to here, remembering what Jesus did for us on that day. I remember it was both a glorious and awful day last year, because as we were walking, it was very powerful to walk with everybody and to sing those chants while we were all fasting. But I specifically remember walking by somebody who was cooking hamburgers outside, and I wanted to strangle him. Because you could smell that, oh my goodness. But even then, we could participate in his suffering by our own self-restraint. And to say, no, we won't take one right now. We'll wait till Easter. Because on that Easter Vigil evening, that 3-hour service that'll happen right in here, about 16 people will line up right here in front of us and do something crazy. They're going to become Catholic. Amazing. Someone happened to them, and then they'll spend the rest of the week when someone tells them or asks them, hey, how was your Easter? Hey, how was your weekend? They have plenty to tell, plenty to talk about. And there's nothing selfish, not going to get any popularity. They're going to be called all kinds of names, especially if those communities that they left. They're not getting any money out of it. It is absolutely sacrificial. So as we approach Holy Week, remember, we continue to pray, sacrifice, share, study your faith, experience the sacraments and the good news, and hopefully we'll be able to tell people what God has done for us and what he has done in the past. And not with the attitude of a tattletale, I'm going to tell, but hopefully with the attitude of a missionary that says, I can't wait to tell. I can't wait to tell.